The Green Bay Packers have one of the best teams in the NFC, but they have 11 draft picks. Do they even have room for all these guys? They might need more of those picks than you realize.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. I was on the X machine the other day and I saw a tweet from our pal Ross Uglum at Packer Report. And he was saying, the Packers have they need a lot of bodies. And at first I went, no, they don't. I've been saying on the show, no, they don't really have the spot for 11 guys. But then I started thinking about it. And while I think they are in really good shape in a lot of places, like we've had this discussion, and we're going to talk more today about, they don't really need a tackle. It would just be nice if one fell to them that they could potentially upgrade there. But they need at least one, if not two linebackers. Like they just don't have purely enough bodies. So even if we're talking about day 3 picks, that's fine. They just don't have enough bodies. They need probably 2 linebackers. The same is true at safety. Like, okay, even if you re-sign Rudy Ford, you've got Anthony Johnson Jr. and Xavier McKinney. That's not enough. You would probably need 2. Okay? Even if it is the case, you don't need a starting offensive lineman. They don't have any backup offensive linemen other than Royce Newman, which is just another way of saying they don't have any backup offensive linemen. So you probably need 2 of those. Well, now more than half of your picks are gone. Brian Gutekunst has said he wants to take a quarterback. Now that's going to happen on day 3, but you still need to use a pick on that guy. And then they need depth at running back. They need a future running back too. They probably need a corner. You can always use more pass rush. Well, okay. All of a sudden you've used those picks. Now, I'm going to go back to this because I think this is the most important thing to be talking about around draft time. I always offer my evaluations of players, but I generally do not like, and this is something I've come lately to, I would say in the last 2 or 3 years, to evaluate draft picks based on player evaluations. Because my ability to evaluate, look, if it were as good as the guys doing the job, I'd probably, have a different job. But I think I'm pretty good at it. So I think it's useful to try and offer that to you guys, right? But the odds of even NFL teams being right over the course of history is not good, right? So the eval part of it, I try and separate. But there is a process part of this where you look at historical norms, and 2 crucial things are true. The further you go away from consensus, which is a little bit of the tail wagging the dog, right? Because guys like Daniel Jeremiah and Dane Brugler and Mel Kiper and Todd McShay, they drive the narratives around these players. And ultimately, I think the media consensus coalesces around a consensus that is being driven by what NFL teams are saying. But it is the case that the further you go from that consensus, this is a wisdom of the crowds thing, the more likely it is that you miss. So knowing consensus is important. And then the second part of this is history tells us that teams generally can be confident, or at least most confident, in their player evaluations for premium positions. The league has, over its history, been better at deciding these are the good players and these are the bad players. How do I know that? Well, Pro Football Focus did a study, and everydayers are going to go, we've heard about this study before a million times. I think it is a crucial piece of information that not enough people know about. And because the audience continues to grow, because our YouTube audience continues to grow, I feel it's necessary to bring up, and I'm going to bring it up every draft season because I think it's that important. When you are evaluating and drafting players, everyone has a risk profile, and you need to understand what history says about those kinds of players. And you can't be so sure in your own evaluation ability that you're going to say history is just wrong on this. That's not to say never take a risk, but understand that that's what's happening. And it's the case that at linebacker, at guard, at center, at running back, and at safety, the league has been really bad at ordering those players. The chances of getting a good player in the first round are not that different than getting a good player in the second, which is not that different than getting a good player in the third or the fourth, which is all to say that the league is bad at evaluating these guys. So don't over-index your own ability to make those evaluations. All of that is to say this. The Packers, the places that they need, linebacker, safety, guard, center, are not the kinds of positions you need to draft in the first round. You can do it day 2, day 3. And the Packers, if anyone, can just plug and chug day 3 offensive lineman, it's Green Bay. And they have a plan. Josh Myers is a former second-round pick under contract. Sean Ryan is a former third-round pick with 2 years, including this upcoming season, left on his deal. They have a plan there. If you want a linebacker, this is the perfect class to say, screw linebacker. Because it stinks. So just wait. You don't have to push it. Not a good safety class. I like the middle. I kind of like the day 2, some of the day 2 guys, but at the top, it's bad. And so just wait. That's okay. And so if there are players that you feel strongly about, and this dovetails with the conversation we had yesterday, go and get them. Go and get them. Because you can use your day 3 capital on depth offensive line, on another linebacker, on another safety. You've spent the money on Xavier McKinney. You have Xavier McKinney, so you don't need to go spend premium assets to have someone with him. It's kind of like when you have a good quarterback. Now, it's not quite the force multiplier, but when you have a good quarterback that you're spending resources on, it is partially a benefit to you that you also can spend potentially less capital, whether it's money, whether it's draft picks, on his receivers, because he's just going to make those guys better. I think Xavier McKinney is the kind of safety that just makes the other guys better. So you don't have to invest high priority resources at safety. You can just take a guy in the 4th round and be fine, and re-sign Rudy Ford, and you got Anthony Johnson. Like, that's a fine plan to me. So their needs set up in a way where you can say, take the extra draft picks, 41, and then because they're the same value, like we don't have to quibble, 88 or 91, whichever one the other team wants. If you put those together, you're talking about a pick that is worth roughly the 31st selection by the Rich Hill trade chart. So you can get back into the first round and not lose that much, because you still would have a second, you still would have a third. You're not net negative on picks. That's the benefit of having these extra picks. So you could take a first round guy at 25, move back up, snag another guy, and still have your second, still have your third. You're not down any picks, really. And that's what the Packers did in 2022. There's precedent for this. They took Quay Walker, they took Devontae Wyatt, and then they took that extra second round pick that they had from the Devontae Adams trade, and they moved up to go get Christian Watson. I would not be surprised at all if that was the way the Packers handled this, because it is the case. And I think it's worth noting, it's why I started there, that they do need some bodies at some key spots. But it's also true that those spots are places where you don't have to spend premium draft capital. So it's actually okay to then give up premium draft capital to go get other players, to move up and get Cooper DeJean, to move back up and get that corner or that pass rusher, interior pass rusher, edge pass rusher, tackle that you want. That is a strategy that works, that makes sense. And so because it sort of hit me, I wanted to get there. I'm glad we did. But there's also something that I've been thinking about with regards to 25 and 41. I think the Packers can double up there and still be in really good shape. And I want to talk about it in just a second here on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. You should not have to worry about how annoying it is to buy tickets. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down closer to first pitch. By the way, Brewers playing great. Playing great ball. Let's go. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% buying last minute. Sports, concerts, comedy, theater. Flash deals save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. And with the low price guarantee, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find seats in the same section row for less. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN all day long on your TV? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day with the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you the can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So to that end, it is possible for the Packers to say, look, 2 premium spots at the top of the draft. Let's just take care of something. At 25, Tyler Guyton is there, Oklahoma. Not a day one starter at tackle, but someone who in a year could replace Rasheed Walker. Maybe you move Rasheed Walker to the right side, you move Zach Tom to center. There's a lot of different ways that someone like Tyler Guyton can be a boon for your team. And then at 41, you got Jordan Morgan, guard from Arizona. Maybe a tackle. Maybe he competes at right guard. Maybe he becomes your swing tackle if he doesn't win that job. You've just absolutely thrown assets at a position where you don't have a need per se, but you're just like, we're locking this down. It is over. We got it. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. And I like that. I like that idea. And I think it's a close cousin of the make a pick at 25 and then trade back into the first round for someone. I've seen this on the X machine a bunch. Hey, take Cooper DeJean at 25 if he's there, and then trade back up for one of Graham Barton, Jordan Morgan, one of these interior offensive linemen for the Packers, someone who could come in right away and start for you at offensive line. I think that's a great idea. That's a great idea. But you might not be in a position to do that. We've talked about it. Cooper DeJean, I think the Packers are going to have to trade up to get him. He's going to work out in a week, a little less than a week, I think. So I thought if he didn't work out, that would be good for Green Bay. He might fall down the board a little bit. Doesn't look like that's going to happen now. So, but if he's there, great. Pick him at 25. But then at 41, what if Kool-Aid McKinstry is also there? Coop can go play safety, can play nickel. That sounds really good. 2 premium positions for all the things that we just talked about. All the reasons. Don't spend premium draft capital on a guard. Don't do that. Yes, you hit on Elton Jenkins, but you can get Mason McCormick in the 3rd. Christian Mahogany. This is a really good interior offensive line class. You're going to be able to get someone in round 3, round 4. You can't get quality corners round 3, round 4. Probably. Because I think a lot of these guys are going to get pushed up. Not a lot in the first round. It's going to be a lot of offensive linemen, receivers, quarterbacks. And so on day 2, everyone's going to be going, we need the defense. And that's where the value is. That's where the day 2 corners are. It's where the safeties are on day 2. I think those guys there's going to be a run on those players. So if you can get them early, while everyone's doing the offensive line run, trying to get those tackles, 7 or 8, might go 9, 10, you're getting the corners. And then when that worm turns and everyone's going, oh crap, we need corners, you're set. And you're in a good position at 58 to say, hey, this offensive lineman that fell, or this safety just landed in our lap. I think that's a smart way to handle this. Now, if it's up to me, it's not, but if it's up to me, I do like the idea of taking either a corner or tackle and then moving back up. I think that is a good plan to go into the draft with. And if you saw, there was a great video that went around of the Cardinals, the trade down and then the trade back up, which was just a stroke of genius. And I think they're going to do it again. I think they're going to trade down out of 4 with the Vikings to get J.J. McCarthy and then move back up for Marvin Harrison Jr. And then the Cardinals are going to take J.C. Latham at 11. Write it in stone. I think that's going to happen. This stuff all happens fast. You have a backup plan. If you can get that corner at 25, moving back up for that offensive lineman, if there's someone there you really like, it makes a lot of sense. But I'm not doing it for a center. I'm not doing it for a guard. I'm just not. If history tells me that I can't be as confident as I want to be in these evaluations at those positions, then I'm just going to wait. And I'm definitely not trading up. And if you want to say, okay, well then trade up for Coop, but then I'm risking losing that guy. And that's the problem, because that's the guy I actually need. I don't need the tackle. I don't really need the guard. I can wait. I probably can't wait on corner at least past like 58, because by the time 88 rolls around, these guys are gone. If you want a good corner, you got to draft him in the first round. Like that's just the deal. And I think top 50, like 41, if you felt like that guy, TJ Tampa there at 41, he's in the, by the way, top 25, Mel Kiper is on TJ Tampa hard. And that means NFL teams are telling him, because he is as plugged in as anyone, that TJ Tampa is an NFL dude. Ran 4.52 at 6'1", 190. A Packer type all day long. If you come out of this draft with Cooper DeJean and TJ Tampa, I'd do backflips. I would learn how to do a backflip and do it. If you can get Tyler Guyton at 25 and then Jordan Morgan at 41, even with my predisposition to not spending that high a pick, I think Jordan Morgan is the kind of player who can be your Elton Jenkins. Come in and just That's a guy that's by year 2, year 3 is a Pro Bowl right guard. Perfect Shanahan tree fit. He's big and nasty, but can move. I know everyone is obsessed with Graham Barton, and obvious why. The idea that you could just keep him at tackle, I think, makes you say, hey, take him at 25. It's why if you're going to move back up in the first for someone, it's got to be for someone you think can play tackle. And look, I hear some of you already going, well, if you like the player, yes, the tape is always the most important thing. The player, that eval is always the most important part of this. And it's not the case that, oh, well, if that player goes in the first, they're more likely to hit than if they go in the second. If you take Graham Barton in round 2, it's different than in round 1, that his outcomes are somehow changed. No. This is about risk. And so if you really like Graham Barton, take him in the first round. If you think he's a first round talent, I would just rather take my risks at positions where I can be more confident in my evaluations because history says I'm more likely to be right. Now we're talking about fractions of percentiles, but this is your job when you're in the front office. I would think those fractions of percents, they matter. That could be the difference between you keeping your job and not. And then you want to give up draft capital and move up for a guy that his evaluation, history says you should be less confident in than other positions. I don't know. That would not be for me. But again, I'm not in these front offices. I want to finish up with what has become an absurd conversation around Matt LaFleur saying he was caught off guard by the Aaron Jones release. We're going to do that in just a second here on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The sports calendar absolutely loaded. FanDuel making it even more exciting to get in on the action. The women's games the other night were Caitlin Clark, 40, almost a triple-double. Paige Beckers, unbelievable late. UConn, we're going to get Paige Beckers against Caitlin Clark. Absolutely cannot wait for that one. The Brewers are hot. The Bucks, oh my God, the loss to the Wizards. What are you doing? Just play 2 good weeks of basketball. I'm begging you. Please. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. I'm begging you, Bucks. I'm begging you. $200. I wish they could play 200 good games. You can win $200 to bet on baseball, the NBA, NHL, and so much more. Just win that first $5 bet. You'll get $200 in bonus bets. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's now also available on the Amazon Fire TV app in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Matt LaFleur made some waves when he said he was caught off guard by what happened with Aaron Jones. Clay Matthews tweeted about it. Became a thing that people started tweeting about, talking about on talk radio, podcasts, etc. And it's a non-story. I'm sorry that makes for bad radio. I'm sorry if you wanted me to get on here and yell and scream and go, the coach and the GM are not talking. Guys, be for real. Matt LaFleur cannot get in front of a microphone and go, yeah, we just felt like we were getting a younger player and we liked it and we lowballed Aaron Jones because we're worried about him staying healthy and he's getting up there in age. And look, we love him, but these are the decisions you have to make. Like, no, even if that's true. And by the way, that's true. You can't say that. And the coach gets to use the GM as cover. That's just how this works. From time immemorial, that is how this has worked. And that's fine. But the reporting that we have is that, and this is multiple reports now, and based on some of the conversations that I've had over the last couple of weeks since this has happened, is this had been brewing for a long time, that they were not really close on the money, or that they just weren't going to move on the money. They were close enough, I felt like. We talked about that on the show. But the Packers were not going to move, and the Rosenhaus team were not going to move. And so they were at an impasse. And the Packers, and this was from the reporting in The Athletic, over the weekend before the tampering period started, the Packers told Aaron Jones, hey, this is the deal. We're not going to sign you. We're going to let you hit the market. And if you want to come back, if you don't get what you want, come back. But like, this offer is off the table. And then on Monday, they went in, they got Josh Jacobs, someone they obviously wanted. And remember, the Packers, the way that their process works, the coaches get to go to the front office and say, hey, here's some guys that we think would be great on our team. Josh Jacobs was clearly a guy the Packers wanted, the coaches wanted. Matt LaFleur knew the contract negotiations were not going well with Aaron Jones. Even if he wanted them to be going better, he knew that. And he knew that the team liked Josh Jacobs, that they were going to make a run at Josh Jacobs. Now, you can be in Matt LaFleur's position and go, look, I know that this is not going great, but like, this is going to get done. It's Aaron Jones. Of course it's going to get done. That's how I felt. But you understand the context. You understand, look, they've been having this contract impasse, and there's this other player that they like, and the Packers handled it a certain way. Matt LaFleur is there in the building. He knows the deal. It's not like Brian Gutekunst is going behind his back and doing all this stuff. It's just not LaFleur's call. And when it comes right down to it, that's a good thing. Not because of any shortcomings of Matt LaFleur. It's just a different job. It's up to the GM to make these sorts of difficult decisions. And the Packers clearly like Josh Jacobs a lot. So this is a non-story. There is not disharmony in the Packers organization over stuff like this. There might be in the future, but there is not right now. Don't get sucked into the nonsense, please. We do not traffic in the nonsense on this show, for the most part. For the most part. All right, back tomorrow, where we will try to avoid the nonsense yet again. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Follow us on Instagram, Locked On Packers. Follow us on TikTok, Locked On Packers. Follow us on Facebook, Locked On Packers. Subscribe everywhere you get podcasts, Locked On Packers. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Locked On Packers, so you can stay Locked On Packers.